The title of our talk is Reading Change Among the Orang Asli of Belum Temenggor. We are privileged tonight to have Kamal Solhaimi Fadzil with us. Kamal is a lecturer with the Department of Anthropology and Sociology in University Malaya, and is here today to share with us the development of the Indigenous rights, sexuality and HIV awareness, policy research
my areas of interest
on persons with disabilities and marginalized children. I think this is very relevant to our times, because the original people would have been spared all of this if not for the development that we've undergone. I think he will elaborate on that. I don't have to do that, so thank God for that. Without him, we can just imagine what it would be to walk in the jungles of Belum-Temengor and to encounter the original people, as we call them, Orang Asli. I do not know what tribes they are, but from early school, when we learned about the Orang Asli, when I was in standard 4, I think, we were first introduced to the different tribes, the Negritos, the Jakuns, Semangs, I think also, right? Semais, and some other smaller groups. So that was how I got to know the Orang Asli, and I wish to find out more about them through our friend here. So we should take over the floor, please.
Let's just go through the slides and we'll see how it goes from there. Reading change among orang. When Bert invited me to give a talk, or asked me to give a talk, and then persuaded me to give a talk, I was thinking of one particular author. His name is Paul Schebesta. He was a Jesuit, if I'm not mistaken, a priest. No, he was a priest. No, okay, a Jesuit. Okay, not a Jesuit, but he was a priest, yeah. And he was, in my field, he was an anthropologist and ethnographer. And in his book, however, the Forests Dwarfs of Malaya was less about ethnography and more about describing the places he visited in his travels. But underlying his description was a very serious inquiry into culture and diffusion, and culture and diffusion. But through his engagement with the Negrito, he started thinking about them slightly differently and started to talk about this idea of adaptation, communities adapting in nature. What I want to share with you is not so much the anthropology of it, but rather his description of the places he visited, the people, more the people in the culture, with pictures that I've taken of the landscape to try and draw us to the current contestation that is happening in this area, or these areas among indigenous peoples. So it's not really a historical piece, but I do use his reference. It is actually locating it today and trying to think about a landscape, Belum Temenggor, as a place that is occupied, has been occupied for a very long time. It's not an area that has only recently been occupied. Although, if you were to come across brochures written about Belum Temenggor, they tell you this is a 130 million year old rainforest, untouched. What's that word? It's almost virgin rainforest, right? But people have been there, they have been shaping it. I think we go to the first slide. So for me, I problematize this idea of landscapes. When we talk, we are very quick to recognize people occupying cities, people occupying rural areas. But when we go to a forest, we are very slow in acknowledging that what we think is a natural virgin forest, it's also a landscape, one shaped by people. but yeah, one shaped by people. Okay, so the Belum landscape is represented in the popular discourse as a rich biodiversity landscape with the local indigenous population omitted from the picture. But a lot has happened in this landscape, even though today this is the impression we give of it. Not only have there been people, but in the 70s you had the Temenggor hydroelectric dam that was built in 1974 and 77. Timber has been extracted continuously since the 60s or the 70s, and the creation of the 78 million Belum Valley biodiversity and biotechnology centers, and a lot more that is going on there today. Yeah, so go to the next one. So, over the last 7 decades, actions have been taken by the states have in unfortunate ways worked towards alienating Orang Asli from their traditional landscape. Go to the next. This is actually what I wanted to say. I said earlier, it's the shaping. There are two main groups that exist within the Belum-Temengor today: the Jahai and the Temia. They are a small community, roughly about, by now maybe closer to 2,000, 2,500 people, 500 families. It's a lot to read. Alright, so the Temias and the Jahais are very different groups. Traditionally, the Jahais were hunter-gatherers and nomadic. The Temia were shifting cultivators. The Temias come from Kelantan, migrating from the south up into the Temenggor River. The Jahais occupy an area, if you can imagine, east of Greek, Belum, if you know Belum, and slightly into Kelantan, the west part of Kelantan, Jeli. You got Jeli, Belum, Temenggor, a little bit out of Asia. That would be your Jahai population. Today, a lot has changed. There's a lot of intermarriage going on. What Schebesta observed in the clear defines, today, of course, there's a lot of mixing due to the intermarriage. Also, in the 70s, as they built the dam, the communities were relocated. The Temia people were grouped down south in a place called RPS Kemar. The Jahais were grouped in the center near Banding, in the center of the Belum-Temengor area called RPS Banun, and the Lano were brought out to a place called RPS Dala. It's nearer to Greek town.
What is RPS?
RPS is Rancangan Pemindahan Semula. It's a resettlement scheme that the government organised in the 70s as part of development for the Orang Asli. So the idea of resettlement is that it has got a town centre, an administrative centre, it has got an economic program, and it has people closer to the facilities so that development can come in. It groups people together. It's a recruitment scheme. But in RPS Banun, they were moved there in the 70s, but until today there is no economic or livelihood activity for the community. That can go into all that later. But that's sort of the background to it. Shall we go to the next one? For me, I got interested in the writings of Schebesta, Evans, Noon. This is stuff I read years ago. I haven't really looked at them more recently. But they provide a window which allows us to look into the past. Schebesta particularly because he had lots of photos in his books that were not your, if you follow traditional sort of ethnographic pictures, a lot of pose. Schebesta had those pose photos, but he also had photos that were quite spontaneous. I suspect he brought a smaller camera, not those huge big ones. Okay, but the stories are hardly ever complete with just one side of the coin. So you have the colonial writings about the indigenous, but you have indigenous talking about colonials as well. So Noon was the guy on elephant. He came into with an elephant. There was probably Schebesta, he took heads. And you ask people, do you met Schebesta? No. But there was one guy who came and took our heads. And I suspect he's referring to the wax heads cast that Schebesta was doing. He was making life casts of people's faces. And then there was this other doctor who they called Dr. Bera. Wrong term for food. It's a shit doctor because he would look at the stools and he would look at their backs, their backsides, so their bums. I still haven't figured out who he is. But they were around the time of Schebesta, Noon and Evans. So this would have been in the 30s, not in the 30s, actually in the 20s. In the mid-20s. Schebesta was here in 24. Evans was actually here earlier. So go to the next slide. So reading Evans reading Schebesta. This is an interesting review of Evans' book that was done by Schebesta, if I'm not mistaken, in the Malaysian branch of the Royal Asiatic Society in 1929. Evans didn't like the book. he said that its language was colourful, that it did not acknowledge other scholars besides Vaughan Stevens. The only person, so basically he didn't acknowledge Evans. Evans introduced him to the Negrito and introduced him to some of the communities, and he was not acknowledged. But Schebesta did have a writing style that was very accessible. This is an example. A false step in the mountain gorges of the interior, the spring of the tiger might have cost me my life. Evans writes, many government surveyors and others have gone far more frequently and even further into the jungle than Schebesta. Yet one does not find them writing in this strain. It is not done. You don't write in that sort of personal strain. But yes, basically Schebesta ignored the existence of his predecessor. Can we go to the next one? So I'm not going to do the same mistake. At the start, I'm going to introduce you to my teachers, people like Hud Saleh, Hassan Makno, Gomez, Colin, Julie Edo, Zawawi, Lim Yufui, Patrick Innes. These are people who got me interested in looking at minority groups, indigenous groups. I was Albert, so Albert Gomez is a Malaysian who's migrated to Australia. He's done a lot of work with the Jahais in Jeli. In 1998, that's how I started my career. I was his research assistant with this Jahai community. Thanks. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you photos and read text from Schebesta's book. And then maybe it will lead somewhere, hopefully, at the end of this. So Paul Schebesta was an ethnographer, and I can't pronounce this, from the Culture Rise School, who first came to Malaya in the mid-1920s. Setting out to uncharted territories, he aimed to establish accurately the territorial boundaries of the Negrito groups. The Jahai were to be found as far as Kelantan, where they had their centre in Kado, and northeast bound as far as Kedah in the Jarum area. Those who were called by the Malays Orang Bukit were known by the name Clare or Semai, and were said to be the southern neighbours of the Jahai and Sabun. This information aroused in me the desire to establish accurately the territorial boundaries, and I planned a journey into the interior. The first stage being to Belum, about 8 days journey from Drake up the Perak. The Jahai called this place Belum, which was also in their language the name of the Perak. Today is just an hour drive from Drake to Belum Forest.
Come on,
Yes, sure.
Why did
Better
you
than
sign?
Huh?
Why did you sign?
These are Malays.
Oh, these are Malays.
These are Malays.
They're not Jahais.
No, these are Schebesta's assistants
Okay.
who went with him into on his trips down the Perak River. So Schebesta was interested in the Negritos, so was Evans. Noon was interested in the Platamia, or what we call Temia today, the farming community. And later they actually mapped these areas where these communities were supposed to be dominant. Shall we go to the next one? So Noon writes, in 1936, the amazing development during the last quarter of the century in Malaya have left few areas which may still be regarded as unexplored. On the west of the 1 inch to 1 mile topography map frames the divide up as far north as the latitude of Drake. On the east, the remoteness of Kelantan has not yet been surveyed on this scale. When I read Schebesta, when I read Noon, the imagination I have of the Belum is one that in the 30s was still unexplored. Still very few people who have gone into these areas. It was still relatively occupied by the Jahais and some Tamias. There were Chinese mining in the Greek and Bersia area, and probably some French mining, I think, further in Jeli. But Belum-Temengor was relatively untouched. And this is a recent photo. Next. So Paul Schebesta writes, the forest has made the Negrito what he is, a silent, gentle, reflective man. What makes the Negrito love his forest? So that he always flies back to it. Because the forest assures him peace of soul, which the stranger with his trumpery of civilization will rob him. The Negrito is no slave, but a child of the forest, to which he is grateful and which he honors with a deep respect. The Jahai explains, we must have trees around us, then all is well. Next. Schebesta observes on hunting with the ant clubs in both fists, the lips firmly round the mouthpiece, and eye streaks on the quarry. They hold a long blowpipe without any support, so steadily the misses are so rare. The dart lies at the end of the tube near the mouthpiece, some woolly material pushed in behind the cap, preventing the dart from falling into the mouth, and at the same time adding the force of the puff, as it prevents the air from escaping the sides of the cap. A pop, a whir, and the dart has struck a prey, sitting innocently in the trees 30 or 50 yards, or even further away. When I was taking this photo, it was for a book for a developer, MK, Mustafa Kamal, who's got a resort in this area, and has also got a research center called the Banding Research Center. So I was helping them come up with a book for their foundation. And we were walking, and I said, this is an act, we're acting, not real. We're just acting, let's go take some shots of you shooting, right? And walking through the forest, he sees a siamang, a gibbon, somewhere on the tree, very far. Can't see it. And look, I couldn't see it. But the first time he shot without a dart. You know, because he thought there's a lot of environmental activities in this area now, so he did not want to kill an animal. He shot it, but he said there was no dart. He said, what's the point then? He said, you're going to see something, you might as well kill it, and you can eat it. So the second time around, we were walking further, he saw another gibbon, and this time, he put a dart in, and he shot it. Then he tells me, actually, it's got no poison. But I heard the thing fall, boom, it fell in the bush. But he didn't want to collect it. I think a lot of these environmentalist groups are going there, and they're afraid. They're afraid whether or not they can hunt. For consumption they can, but they cannot sell. But he was like struggling with that. But what was amazing was it was far away. I mean, you're talking about a very high tree. If you could see the siamang, it would be about this big. And he managed, he hit it accurately with one blow. They use a particular poison called, I'm not sure how much we know about Orang Asli, but they use a poison called Ipoh. It comes from the Ipoh tree. They tap the sap, and then they sort of drain it, burn it a bit, and prepare it, cure it to become poison on their darts. According to them, it's very potent. You cut yourself. Depends on the community you go to. Some say there are no antidote. Some says there are, but you die before you find the antidote. It's very fast. Okay, shall we go to the next one? So this man is working on his profile. Again, I'm quoting from Schebesta, referring themselves using the physical landscape. Schebesta's first map, the Jahais near Greek refer to themselves as Orang Jeram. So yeah, it's not the Jahai. He met the Lano. I misquoted there. The Orang Asli group called Lano, who referred to themselves as Orang Jeram. They did not call themselves Lano or Jahai, rather they referred to themselves by the landscape. So Jeram is rapids, people who live by the rapids. Or the Termia will say we are the hill people who live on the hill. Schebesta describes this Negritos he met as egalitarian. There's no real leadership structure. It's an egalitarian society. People are pretty much the same. They do not sit together around a fire for a discussion. Each squats or lies under his shelter by the blazing fire and gives his opinion in a loud voice. Thereupon each replies according to his insight and age in a voice equally loud. So it goes on for hours until one opinion has finally supervened. So why did I choose this picture? This guy is inside, another guy is outside, and they're talking to each other. He's sitting on he's prepared a little place for him to lie on, and he's doing his stuff here. And the conversation was going on like that. People were just shouting. shouting to each other. So in Schebesta's observation, women would go out and bring in great heaps of roots and forest fruits, so that they were always generously supplied with food. The building of huts is really the woman's work. The same thing you can observe today if you went to the Jahai settlement. This is actually so the government has resettled them, but many continue to go back into the forest to look for food, to look for resources that they then commercially they sell. Fish, certain jungle goods like rotan, gaharu, they will collect from the forest. So they would actually move and live in these makeshift settlements while they are out gathering the forest produce. They might stay in one of the settlements for 2-3 months at a time, and then go rotate back to the centers that the government have set up for them. Shall we go to the next one? Two Jahai boys. So he describes the boys fishing in the Perak. They had no fish, but brought in a lot of large white fruits which grew on the trees by the riverbank. The fondness to their children. The camp contained a great number of children who kept it pretty lively. Fathers and mothers are very devoted to their children. They are afraid that strangers may entice them away. If one comes suddenly upon a camp, you can be sure that the mothers vanish with their children into the forest and only be induced to appear after a lot of persuasion. These are actually kids waiting for the boat to take them home from school. Next. So I should just tell another story with the picture. So apparently another friend who does NGO work has mentioned that a tiger attacked a guy on a boat here. I don't know how true that is. So these areas are remote enough where there are quite a lot of wildlife roaming the landscape. One of the challenges of going to school is also parents have to send their kids away to stay in hostels and not be able to commute back home. For the Jahai children, they are very close to the children. To let them go away for a long time is difficult, it's troubling. So the kids drop out from school. Very high dropout rate. Next. This is the kids at Jahai and Tengah kids at the RPSI Panun in Temenggor. Next. So music, bamboo reeds serving as water containers were brought out from under the shelters. Women and girls spotted in a row, while 5 other women who had decorated themselves strangely with greenery and cloth stepped into the foreground. Shy and giggling, they executed some timid dance steps to the hollow accompaniment of the bamboo reeds, which the musicians varied by stomping on the ground until the forest re-echoed with the beat. So this is in preparation of a siwang. The siwang is the traditional dance or music, which is also a ritual to call the spirits to participate in various activities. It could be a healing, it could be a land clearing, healing, death. You would do this sort of rituals. So this lady is preparing the bamboo reeds for our performance. Darkness of the forest, they can see quickly and accurately. Their sights must be extraordinarily powerful. Animals and birds in the branches of the trees they would see in a moment, where I could see nothing. In the same way they notice fruits and edible plants, where I saw only a tangle of weeds. The same is true today. We were walking, hunting with the same man. I think there's Tongkat Ali, correct me if I'm wrong. That's a Tongkat Ali shirt. And he just identified different medicinal plants in the forest. And he could, actually saw the ribbons up in the tree branches. Elephants. So Schebesta writes, on our way, Bunga came upon fresh elephant tracks. They were those of a solitary animal. They followed the trail up the hill, and from the height overlooked the bare slopes. The destruction was clearly serious. All the mandioca bushes were torn up, the sugarcane eaten, the fields trampled over. Ramok was depressed and bewildered by his bad luck. Next. So Schebesta was able to capture the last use of the bow by the Jahai. There was a culture, so no other Orang Asli uses the bow and arrow. This was the only community that actually had the bow and arrow. But by the time Schebesta came to the landscape, the bow was dying, the culture was dying out. He writes, the bow is an almost obsolete weapon among the Negrito. The Jahai were the only tribes among whom I came across, and yet 2 generations ago it was in general use, as the present generation still remembers. It remains a riddle why the bow was given up. It had not lost its value, for there is plenty of big games wandering about the forest. It never was regarded as a weapon, because war is unknown among the Negrito, and is clearly shown by the fact that the corresponding protection, the shield, is not found. But cultures adapt too. So this woman is weaving plastic into a table cover for sale. So some cultures have lost, some cultures have retained. If the flowers in her hair are part of a spirit, they believe these flowers contain spirits, and they will go to the forest during the flowering seasons and pluck these flowers and wear them in their hair. If I ask, they will say just for beautification, but some, and generally they told me that they believe spirits are attached to these flowers, and in a way they commune with it through this. It has a spiritual function. This is a place in the Sara, and Schebesta was there in 1928, and he described a clearing about 3 kilometers from Belum-Temengor. Sara's people, following the example of the Flare, have laid out a ubi plantation on the crest of a hill. The encampment, consisting of 5 shelters in a camel formation in the open and 16 inhabitants with a number of ants, contain an admixture of Flare. Flare is the Temia, the mixture of the Temia and the Temengor and the Jahai. In 2011, JMBRAS records indicates that there are over 90 families in the same area with approximately 450 people. They still open tracts of forest land for tapioca, but increasingly this is being replaced by rubber. So this is an example. They've cleared the area, but now they're starting to plant rubber trees for commercial gains. Next. And now we go to so a lot of what Schebesta observes, in a lot of ways you can still see it today. A lot of the landscape, it has changed, but a lot of the culture, the people, the economy, the spirit of autonomy remains. Colin observes the construction of the Colin Nicholas is an NGO. Dr. Colin he does research. He's quite the researcher, but he's also an activist who advocates indigenous rights. This is his observation. The construction of the dam provided the impetus to integrate the Orang Asli into the mainstream society. The Orang Asli were expected to change their mindset and conform to that of the dominant society, materially, spiritually, and educationally. Most Orang Asli conform to some extent. This is a Temia village, mostly Temia village, called Kampung Semelo in Temenggor, and it's one of the showcase villages by the Department of Aborigine, Jakwa. It's very clean. It's got this solar energy source, and it was managed. It was transformed by the head man, a man named Samad, Penghulu Samad, who wanted to eradicate malaria and wanted to create a livelihood program for his community. The government resettled them, but there were no activities for them. So in 1980s or in the early 90s, he somehow learned from the agriculture department how to terrace the land. And so he terraced the land with 9 people, and they started planting rubber. And they're the only community out of 18 in this landscape that actually has a successful rubber economy. And also they managed to eradicate malaria by building proper drainages. And so he encouraged his people to keep the gardens neat and to build drains. And so you have what we have here. Next. But not all 18 villages are like this. If you go to Jahai villages, very different. Temia, they're very organized, maybe because of their agriculture background. Jahai, we have some photos here. but there's also encroachment. So despite their marginalized position, and in spite of their deprived situation, the Jahai takes pride in being a unique people. Their mantra has always been, if you cannot give us what we want, then leave us alone in our own land. But it is clear they will not be left alone. Their homeland are no longer for their own enjoyment. This is a picture of siltation caused by logging. I think it was 4 years or 5 years of logging upstream. Now you can basically walk on the river. This used to be rapids, but as you can see now, it's slowly been covered over. And this becomes a big issue for communities that are living along the side of this river, further and further into this landscape. Next. Calling notes again. The impoundment of the Temenggor Dam in 1972 meant that the Jahai hunter-gatherers had to leave their traditional territories in the lowland and settle on higher ground. Their new homelands now came with a lake view, but was less productive. The lake environment also caused changes in many aspects of their lives. Thanks. This is a very common scene today as well. The Jahais are resilient people. During the time of Schebesta, they lived as autonomous and exclusive people. The modern situation, however, now compels them to adapt to new ways and new restrictions in their society. In those aspects they perceive as beneficial, they embrace in others impositions that do not benefit them, they try to fend off. They do not always succeed. That area just now we saw downstream, this is upstream. This is where the logging is taking place. This was taken before the logging activities. It's still a virgin forest. Today the landscape has changed. Thanks. So a far cry from the isolation that Schebesta encountered in his journey into Belum Temenggor, the landscape today is crowded with many people with different interests. So in 1936, Noon described this area as uncharted. Today it is heavy. There's heavy traffic. Tourism is big. Logging is big. There's even a European company, I think from Belgium, Brussels, that has a cage fish farming in this area. Huge tilapia sort of cage farming. Definitely not uncharted territories. It's very much exploited by many stakeholders today. This is an early map, 1970s, before the dam. I don't think it was not very well snapped. You can see the rivers making down from below the area. So this is the Sara River, Singo. I'm not sure where this is, but later we will see it corresponding in the community maps drawn out by these people, by the community. Now this is the same area now with the lake. So the people who used to live in the river valleys now have to move up when the soil isn't so good for agriculture. Next. This is a map that I was doing as part of my project, using Schebesta's book, using government records to show the movement of people as a result of government policy. So in Schebesta there was no one. They were distributed along the river valley, the main river. In the 70s, as a consequence of the emergency, the communist emergency, they were regrouped. 74, you see a little bit more movement. 78, the dam was almost complete. They were again regrouped, this time at RPS Banun. In the 80s, the lake was up. 90s, you can actually see that they started to move. They started to move back out. But the government, the Jabatan Orang Asli, records this as former settlements. But by 2010, these former settlements are fully occupied. The people went back to their landscape. Basically, it's a territory with several groups that occupy very distinct bounded areas. And what happened was when they were relocated to somebody's territory, they fought. They disagreed. Who should be here? What resources? And so over the 10 years, they started to move out. Also, the promises were not met. The economic plans didn't happen. Development did not quite materialize. And there was internal conflict, so the community started to disperse back to the traditional landscapes. And these are the maps drawn by the local community. Again, it's a bit messy. So there's a river that runs down here called Sungai Sara. Sungai Sarang. And so they were chatting just from memory, not having a map at hand, just a paper and a pen. They drew out the river, the small rivers, and where their boundaries were. So they knew it by heart, what were the main rivers that they followed from where it meets the Perak River, where it meets the Temenggor River, all the way to the interior at the Ulu, and the rivers that makes up their main river. Okay, then they will bound it either by mountains or by the hill crest that surrounds it. So this would be my area, that would be your area. If you look at the next map, this is another community map, Sungai Tekam. Somewhere down here, if I'm not mistaken, I can't really tell this. My eyesight isn't that good. Somewhere there is Sungai Enam, that's where we saw the siltation. Further up was that village I said they were not logging at that time. There is the virgin forest somewhere up here, and then it goes down. There are three villages: Kelab, Selao, and Tekam.
So you're saying they did this themselves?
Yes, they did this themselves. Okay, see, what I
You
was...
need special thinking to do this.
What I was it doesn't look impressive here, but when they drew it, it was very impressive because it was from memory, and it came from training from young. If you ask these guys, do you have a landscape? They would say no. Do you have boundaries? No. But when you ask them to commit on paper, they come up with a bounded landscape, and they have clear ideas of who can go in, who cannot, who can utilize, and they have got spirits attached to these landscapes. Names of rivers, definitely, they know their landscape very well, but also stories attached to spirits that hold them to that landscape. So it's not, so this was actually to counter official positions that Orang Asli have no bounded territories. They will go as far as the eyes can see, that their land stretches forever and ever, right? This part of the project was actually to say, no, that's not true. They have bounded landscapes, they have ways to identify their territory, and it's inculcated from very young. They're taught from a very young age what is their boundary and what is not their boundary. That they should not go. They can use the resources in other people's boundaries, but if it's just as passing through, it's fine. But if they're going to be a bit longer, they have to get permission. They have to ask for permission. They cannot open a land, for example, and plant tapioca in other people's area. They can do it if they ask. So they don't understand why when people come into their areas, they don't ask them for permission. Why is it that loggers can come in and just do as they please, soldiers can come in and do as they please, tourists can come in today and do as they please? They don't understand. The next one. So this is another community map. This was done. There was actually a far more impressive map, but they lost it in the flood, and I lost it in my digital wilderness. I got it somewhere in my laptop. I can't find it. They've got a very detailed map, almost like a topography map of the rivers and the mountains, which they drew from the memory.
How old is this person?
Huh?
How old is this person?
These are young people who do this. They vary from 20 to 40. It was done in a group. Yeah, we had an exercise. I got them we had a training, and then they went and sat and did it.
Is this different person in the last time?
So the purpose of having a map, it's really to address outside people and dealing with maybe legal issues where they have to show on paper or through some form of documentation, this belongs to me. So it requires another form of maps. So actually my own project I was interested in looking at how people use maps. The government uses maps in a particular way. This was done by NGOs who are trying to help advocate native customary rights, and when they go to courts, they have to show evidence. One of the strong evidence is this idea of a mind map. They call it a mental map, and then later they will go to the landscape and GPS it, and then it will be digitalized into a nice sort of formal-looking map, not like this. It would be all so-called accurate.
What is tapak kaki orang besar?
I think it's elephant. No. Orang besar is referred to as elephant, but it could also refer to like you would say jinn lah. something spiritual. I'm not sure in this case. But I think it's spiritual. This is another group, the Tarot Bus, the one with the women that were in the shifting camp. This group continues to roam around the landscape very actively as nomadic groups. So this is the reality today. The landscape is being occupied by, like in this case, loggers behind. You can look behind. There's when this picture was taken in 2011, it was active, but now apparently it's not active anymore. But the camp is still there. This is where they will collect logs from the jungle in this Sara area, put them on boats and bring them out. This community used to stay there, so their houses are there, their fields are there, their graves are there. So when you're studying the stories, that's where we have our old orchards. If you look over there, there's a highlight. That's our parents' grave. I can't describe how, to me, that's traumatic. I can't imagine how they can sit across looking at the landscape where their graves are. And that was one story I heard in 2011. But the last time I was back, when we were talking about logging routes, it was quite a common theme that they would be asked to relocate or move out, or loggers would clear areas that were graveyards and put their log piles there. If these timber practices were certified by international standards, that cannot happen. You're supposed to actually get free prior informed consent from local communities who have claims to the territory. So this was for me in 2011 when I started the government map project. It was surprising. Nowadays I hear a lot of it, so I think it's quite common. But it's still traumatic. For me, it's still a traumatic thing to think that your parents will be buried there and somebody has a timber collection point. So go to the next one. This is an example of a private chalet in the area. There are many of these. There are many outside-owned chalets, either government ones. So government agencies have their own resorts there, but not as nice as this one. The fire brigade, the police, the army, I think TNB, various groups. Everyone has a little, for education department, everyone has a little island where they have their own retreats. This happened to be a very nice looking one, owned by a private individual. And they also have all these sort of boathouse activities now. So Albert Gomez in 2007 on his work in Jahat with the Jahat in Jeli observes, walking through the forest with the Mendrak. Mendrak is another Negrito group. What was often also a journey into their past. Mendrak would point to particular sites or landmarks and then tell stories of past events which occurred there. This raises several questions. Their connection to land is immensely significant as a barrier of identity and history, as well as a source of Mendrak livelihood. What happens then if the people are resettled or displaced from the traditional land? Would this in fact amount to an erasure of their history? You walk with the Mendrak in Jahat, the Jahat in Jeli, or you walk with the Jahat in the, as you mentioned, where's that place? Kejar in Belum, or you walk with the Jahat further down. It's always, there is a story. When I was doing my research for the first 2 years, I wasn't going to the field as part of the research. I was going to the field just to get an idea of the landscape. I was looking at government documents. But sometime in 2012, I was writing a small paper. I got a man on a boat to show me a landscape. Because when you talk to a Jahat like this, in an area like this, a lot of the answer is no, not interested. There's no expansion to the conversation. But when we are moving towards the landscape, a lot of stories come. So as you're on the lake, they'll point to somewhere slightly underwater and you say, oh, that's our old fields. And he can actually point to his settlement, to his fields, to graveyards along the river or underwater. And as we are moving from the Temenggor River and we're going into the smaller tributaries, I think it's the Singo, and then you go into the Sungai Enam and it goes up to the Stekam River. We see tourists passing by because Sungai Enam is where MK development has got chalets at one time. I don't know if it's still operating now, but then it was in operation, and they would just pass by and go. And this man who was with me, who was a head man named Pak Hitam, if I'm not mistaken, he was very sad. People would just cross into his territory and not ask for permission. You know, when you ask them the question, they answer differently. When you're there and you see it, the expression says it all. It's an intrusion, it's an encroachment into this area, and they really don't know what to do about it. They have no idea how to deal with it. Next, they are trying to go through courts and all. The various NGOs and communities are now working on building maps, and they're trying to establish. They've painted boundary markers and all that. So they're trying to establish themselves. So Schebesta's book, back to him, colourful and perhaps lacking in academic finesse, nevertheless reads a little like an Enid Blyton. I grew up on Enid Blyton. I love fantasies. So it opens up a whole world of wonderment and imagination, a Pandora's box. If you read about the Belum that Schebesta saw, it's a fantastic space. It's where tigers roam, elephants roam. He's got titles like, I can't remember now, where the morning sun gently kisses the forest crown. He's got that sort of language, and it's very imaginative. These photos and observation leaves us with a rich account of a people who, although written almost a century ago, rings true today. These are, as Colin states, a proud people. They don't deserve the defiling of their land or the blatant disregard to what places held dear and sacred to them. They're not living exhibits in the museums to be gawked at or zoo exhibits to be paid and fed, if considered entertaining enough. The people of the Belum deserve their space and right to retain themselves as free people. Thank you for spending the Monday. But let's have questions. I'm better with questions. So overall, I could elaborate on the last bit, I suppose. The development of the area, the tourist development of the area, the ecotourism, basically looks at them as living exhibits. They are not seen as stakeholders in the development of their own land, rather as museum pieces. In one of the development plans, in fact, the government plans to select several villages that will become examples of this living museum. I don't know if they've done it, but that was part of the initiative. What I did observe is that people coming in, tourists coming in, if they just came to the village, they would just go up. The tour operators would bring them in. If they perform a dance or had a blowpipe exhibition, demonstration, then they would be paid. Otherwise, they just come in, look around, and then go off. That was from my own observation. When I asked the tour operator, they said, "Oh, we have an arrangement with these people. I know them well. I've come here often." So, but the communities are not brought in as equal stakeholders in their own landscape. Once a pathway has been established, outsiders come in and become guides. But these outsiders are smart. When they want to go into the jungle that is uncharted, they call these guys. These guys will bring them in. they know who knows. But when it turns into a commercial enterprise, very rarely do you see Orang Asli working as partners. Maybe as porters, maybe as sort of lower down the ranks. But as Colin noted, as Schebesta notes, as Colin reiterates, these are very proud people. I don't know if you're experienced with hunter-gatherers or any nomadic groups. They don't understand. They're not. How do I say? It's not a question of modernity or this or unmodern. It's just a question of just to them. Why do you come into my area without asking my permission? It's just a sense of honesty that is prevalent. A sense of pride and being a people of a particular landscape, and it's still very strong and something to admire. Yeah. Any questions? I work as a lecturer in a government university. I get research grants to conduct research, so I'm more formally a researcher, an academic, but I see myself more just traveling through a landscape. Definitely not an activist. So in many places, people conduct research in a sort of, how should I put it? The kind of research I like to do, or I like to think I'm doing, is one where I work with the community together. So it goes with it's a sort of two-way flow. I'm not just getting information from them, but we're trying to build a sort of understanding of a particular landscape together. So we're trying to understand their maps. I brought people who could train them to do mapping, to do this community mapping. Okay, but the knowledge is theirs. It's just the process. So in a way, that knowledge they can use for their own purposes, and the network that they build from there empowers their group. So in a way, I do an advocacy type research. So I don't see that as being an activist. I just see that as one form of research.
When you brought in somebody to train them, things partially?
No, they just teach them a process. So before you come up with a community map, you need to be able to know your landscape. So they call that a mental map. You just sketch your area. How well you sketch it, or how poorly you sketch it, depends on your knowledge of your area.
And the process?
It's
because to take whatever is wrong here and then to translate it to B, that's a different process altogether.
So that one took a bit of training. But subsequently, the real training comes from actually learning how to use the equipment like GPS, and negotiating what are boundaries. It becomes a very political question, not just a political between the communities. Do we want to represent a larger area, or do we want to represent our tribal area or group areas? So one band or one group would be here, another group here, another group here. But since we are talking about an external threat, let's group ourselves together so we are stronger. So then the debate internally is over what sort of boundaries should we create.
So, but they do have demarcation objects.
They do have knowledge. They use painting, what they call it, what do you call this thing? They use hills, they use river source, and they also like valleys.
Natural.
But now they are learning to, because of this process, they are learning to mark boundaries so that outsiders can understand. This is where our boundary starts. But it's a long process. It started 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's more than 3 years, almost 4 years ago. And now we're at the stage of the mental map, not yet the GPS.
I'm sorry, but we talk about training somebody to do maps. Somebody can, some of the legal guy can say, you are influencing the Orang Asli to make certain boundaries.
It's their choice. The whole process is done by them. For me as a researcher, I simply want to understand what boundaries exist, but what information goes and what the boundaries is internally discussed. And so it's taken a long time because the decisions and the outcomes have to be from within the community. It could have been sped up if I intervene and say, well, let's do it this way, let's go together. But it's their process. So the downside to that is, of course, you have to give a lot of time for the community to participate if they want to. If they don't want to, the project ends there. The research works in that way. My part. It's not a traditional one like Schebesta, where he goes in, identifies a topic or and then he collects. I'm more interested in advocating a particular position, and part of that process of collecting data, we have this empowering processes that goes on.
So typically, would they prefer a simulation or tradition?
Like everyone else, they just don't want to lose out. That's all. If they say turn the whole place to rubber plant.
If you want the society's commercial value, but yet want to stay in the old traditional environment. So which is
they want, so for the Jahai it's very clear. The Jahais value their trees, they value their forests. they value their land. They're very clear. If they had to have a choice, they would say they would value that tradition. Everyone else should leave the landscape if they had to make a choice. But where we are at now is this is our land, this is their land. Why can't they also want to develop within their landscape? It is, after all, traditionally theirs. It was never conquered from them. It was never taken away through war, or their rights. They were never alienated from the land. So if they want to plant, say, rubber trees in their forest for their own commercial wealth, why not? They're not going to another person's landscape. Their problem is other people are coming in and exploiting their landscape. That's the challenge. The state sees it as a state-owned area, because as far as the state is concerned, nobody develops this area, and no one has a land title over it. That one is a lot of issues. Maybe early on there were no processes to document land. A lot of the communities themselves admit they were ignorant to the early processes of getting themselves registered for land. But they're trying to do it now. They registered under JMBRAS, even though their area is RPS. If I'm not mistaken, a large part of their area has not been gazetted. And a large claims of land under the JMBRAS before that JOA, a large percentage of the land that were submitted as traditional land have not been gazetted. I think when I was interested in this more academically, maybe 10 years ago, there was something like 70-80% not gazetted. I think it's still the number. I think it still has not changed. It's still there. So but it is a heavily politicized issue because of the resources. It's not just the trees anymore. Today it's also land. The video that I couldn't open, the Orang Asli guy talks about him talking to a logger, and the logger saying that this area is going to be crossed by 2 roads. So as roads open, so if you can imagine Sungai Siput going up to the East-West Highway, and I can't remember the other one. Yeah, so that kind of thing. This is what they were saying. I can't verify. But if land areas open in that direction, then you see a lot more land use coming in. As of what you see now. Now the place is still quite heavily forested. So logging is fine. That's why they say logging is okay lah. But loggers will come, take the trees and leave. What they're afraid is loggers come, take all the trees, and then estates come. Then they've lost their land. It's too early.
Well, I suppose that they regret the communist insurrection. During the communist insurrection, they were at peace. No logger, no.
Yes. They just had the communists and the British shooting at each other.
Yeah, which was okay for them.
There's another book which I didn't bring, which was written by a British colonel, an officer who used to walk around that landscape. And he would talk about how the Orang Asli used to play both sides because they didn't want conflict in their landscape. So a communist figure will walk in and they will keep him here, and then they'll keep the British officer in one side. He thought that they didn't know he was there, so he was hiding. 1 week later, when the communists has left, they came to him and said, "Hey, why are you sitting in the bush for so long?" And then he goes, "Oh." So they used to do that because they did not want conflict. But they were part of, a lot of them, the older ones were involved in the emergency, either as police commandos, or as communists.
Trackers.
They were part of Senoi Pra. The Senoi Pra, I think Vet 69 or so, but Senoi Pra definitely.
Part 13.
Senoi Pra was in the 1960s, and then you had the commando unit called Vet 69. There were also Orang Aslis in there. But Senoi Pra was all Orang Asli. And they were active as fighters, trackers, auxiliaries, but some joined the communists. There were communist groups as well. In fact, a lot of the British intervention in the 40s, the 50s, among the Orang Asli, was to fight the communists. If I'm not mistaken, the communists started the term Orang Asal, so the British came up with Orang Asli instead of the Semang, Sakai. All these are derogatory terms. And also diverse. You got the orang Ulu, orang Sungai, whatever. So then they started grouping them into this nice category called the Orang Asli.
How they group them, by language or?
Language, culture, to some extent, geography, topography. But language, Schebesta was language. He actually had this whole language.
So different small
They have
so got their own.
different rumpun, different.
But they can understand each other. Or they speak Malay.
Not if they are from different groups. So a Jakun has more Malay-based language, Proto-Malay. Their language will be very different from the Semai. I always get my terms mixed up. One is Austro-Asiatic, one is what's the other one called? I keep forgetting these terms. But it's basically the mainland Thai Mon-Khmer language group, and the other one is the islands.
Only.
Yeah? No. It's I can't remember. It just slipped my mind.
But how do they communicate? They speak what?
Malay. If they're cross group, they speak Malay. Yeah. So they can speak quite
How do
good.
they learn the language, Malay language?
Contact,
Trading.
trade, school.
Trading.
But Jais are very adept to languages. Some because they live very close to the Thai borders. Some can speak Thai through contact. So trading has been going on for a long time. They would trade for rice, for a bit of jungle goods. They would trade for necessities, metalworks, rice.
And
It's not new.
their literacy rate.
Oh, that's a hard question. That's it. When I was a bit more the academic 10 years ago, the school dropout was high. Up to standard 6, and then you have something like 50% or what dropout. Then from 1 up to form 3, and then another group will drop out. And the reason usually has to do with distance from home to school. So up to standard 6, like in this place there's a school. So most of the communities can go to a school where all the kids are Orang Asli. When they want to go to form 1, they have to go to a school outside where they mix.
Hostel.
Yeah, hostel with other kids. So last time they used to tell me in Delhi there were a lot of discrimination. Now I'm not sure. But the dropouts then were high, and I get the impression it's still high today. So last time the school was up to standard 3 in the village, and then standard 6. So if that village only had up to standard 3, the dropout would be at standard 3. If it was up to standard 6, the dropout would be at standard 6. But in a report done in 1996, up to form 5, I think there was something like 70% dropout. Very, very high.
Colin was one of the first graduates from the university. Colin was one of the first university graduates, isn't it?
No, Colin is not an Orang Asli.
He's not an
Julie Edo is an Orang Asli. He's the first PhD holder Orang Asli. He did his PhD at ANU in anthropology.
I thought his
Mother.
Colin Nicholas. He looks Chinese when you're recording. He's probably mixed. I don't know.
What I read actually about him is that his mother was Orang Asli.
I don't. No, that's another person. You're talking about. But this I can be very polite. You're talking about Batoni. Batoni. His mother was Orang Asli. His father was the first British Director General for Jabatan Orang Asli, Department of Anthropology. Colin is. I don't even dare say it. It's probably a mix of everything else that's under the Malaysian rainbow.
And known.
From where come your interest in
I was not interested in Orang Asli. I was interested in anthropology. I came back. I wanted to do physical. There was no place in Malaysia, so I followed Hud Saleh for a field visit, and he brought me to a Jakut community in Kuala Krau in Pahang. And that was the first time I saw something out of Bangsa, out of KL. That was very different. They lived in bamboo huts. As you drive from KL to the last tar road, there's the last Malay village. You cross over into the logging road, electricity, everything stops there. And the moment you touch the dirt road, you go into Orang Asli landscape. So I was fascinated. 3 hours away from where I live, people live without electricity, without water, without toilets, in bamboo huts. That's what caught my interest. It wasn't an anthropology question, it was about rights.
Your research is mainly based up north, or have you done any
I've done some work. I've done some work in Pekan Pahang, among the Jakun community. And then that was for a UNDP project, and some sort of visits to various the Orang Laut in Johor, the Cik Wong in Kuala Krau as well in Pahang, the Jakut as I mentioned earlier in Kuala Krau. But a lot of these were my early engagement to understand what it was, that was issues with Orang Asli. So I don't consider them research. It was a lot of engagement.
The reason I ask, the reason I ask is because from what I've read, I mean, the coming of the French missionaries to Malacca, Father Fabre, Father Bore, and those French priests were involved with the Orang Asli here in Malacca. You know, and they started settlement actually for them and Rubia.
Yep.
You know, and then it went to Aisalah. They are around actually in Malacca in Kali. So the thing is, it was very interesting to note the French missionaries at that time always had the difficulty of catching up with their flock because they were nomadic.
They move around.
They moved around a lot, and the Europeans, they couldn't just stop. So, but then we know until today, these people who became Christians are in many belts down the peninsula and up the peninsula.
Yeah, actually, it's
in different communities.
Yes. Yeah, in where I do work, there's also Christian missions and Christian groups.
The one word I think is still commonly used, the word Deus.
Deus.
Yeah, that one is actually a very interesting thing. This Deus thing is actually, there is a journey that goes back into history. Because, you see, when the Dutch conquered Malacca, many of the Portuguese casados, the Portuguese descendants through intermarriages, moved to places out of the city and into the hinterland. There's one place upriver which is known as Cape Gereja until today. And the Malays who live in that area can point that hill to us actually, you know, where a church was built up on the hill and where the Portuguese casados, actually some of them intermarried with Orang Asli. And the strangest thing is, it was espoused by Mr. Westerhout, who was the sheriff of Malacca in the 1800s, that the term Deus which they spoke to him, because he met them in the 1800s actually, came from early Portuguese exposure. Because the Orang Asli wouldn't have had an idea of Deus at all, which is a Latin term. You know?
No, I mean intermarriage was whatever happened, but also we forget that Orang Laut were the ones who introduced Malacca to the early Sultanate, and these are basically Orang Asli territory.
Exactly.
Malacca, Johor, Singapore,
Yes.
Batam, Bintan, all these are Orang Laut areas. It's a story of as people populated, they were pushed further and further inland. Today, the reason why they are struggling, arguing back or fighting back is because there's nowhere else to go. It's literally pushed to the wall. So, you had a question?
Another question. We share a border with Thailand. So what's Thailand's take on this?
So, there's similar groups on the other side. I think they're called Semang. On this side of the border, Semang is a derogatory term. We don't use it. But on the other side, what I understood is they refer to commonly the Semang. And they're also nomadic, but I do not know the policy for them. But Orang Asli here do sometimes cross over.
One question, two questions. These people say with the Mahameri people?
No. These are Negrito groups that occupy the interior, low valley river areas. Mahameri is actually a coastal inter-island people. I think they are Senoi, if I'm not mistaken, from the language.
Because when I went there,
I could be wrong about the language, but I think they're Senoi.
but they say these people got over. They come all the way from the top.
No, they're supposed to have come from the...
From where?
Mongolia. And the word they use is more to Malay.
Yeah.
How they speak Malay is when you want to go to toilet, you say you want to go to toilet, but they say no, shishi.
They want to pass motion. They never say, I want to go to pass with motion. They say,
She's a woman.
But what, when I check, then they see, whatever they see, but they say, chichi.
Okay, but the truth is, a lot of these communities have been very close to the local communities, the Malays and others. And today, they're even closer to the communities. They're very well integrated. They are not out there. They are actually
taking care of it.
and they speak very good Malay because of trade, because of contact over the centuries.
And their face are very good. But I look at eyes very good.
But they are sea intercoastal island people.
Number two is that we have done a lot of research in these birds. What do you think will happen to this bird next generation? It is modernized.
Depends on
I see a lot of bloggers coming in.
Depends on the group. A lot of places like Bukit Lanjan. Bukit Lanjan used to be a nice agriculture-based settlement. Today is Damansara Perdana. And the community there have houses that they rent from it. But there's a lot of internal sort of an enemy happening. A lot of breaking up within the community. And then you have other Orang Asli communities as well having this urbanization encroaching. But you have people like the Jahai who have got quite a lot of space still. You go to Belum is a protected area. These guys will just go further in if they can.
Today, now the Orang Asli, we are not using walking the Leopard nowadays. Motorbike, 90.
I mean,
modernized, yeah, very modernized.
My colleague has a PhD in anthropology from ANU. Another friend of his is a medical doctor. Another one has a master's in computer science. I mean, they're like anyone else. It's just that this is about their rights. It's about what no one took away from them, but people are taking away now without going through proper channels. It's their land. No one was there before that. Belum Temenggor, you go back to Schebesta, no one was there. He was there. According to Noon, the Malay Thais attacked them sometime in the late 1800s, but they repelled it and pushed them off. So that's the land issue. But as far as the people, they are like anyone else. They have integrated. Some of them are probably senior government officers, private enterprise. Many served in the police during the emergency and are very proud Malaysians for their contributions. The land is what
will not be the same.
Everybody changes. I think
what is happening to my community.
One of the beauty about anthropology is that we take the view that culture always changes. It changes. As we meet people, we bring something else in. Leos is an example. And it introduces a new concept. I remember one of the first Orang Asli I met in Perak, somewhere deep in the interior. I was an excited young anthropologist. He said, tell me about your religion. I believe in one, in the true spirit. Oh, great. Jesus. Good for you. Good for you. And I got introduced to Christianity for, 1 hour or half an hour. People get ideas, it influences them, and they change. And culture change. As we go along, none of us stays the same.
What is the strangest thing you ever encounter while working with Orang Asli?
Orang Asli, no strange. Nothing strange. The only thing I have problem going to the toilet. That's a personal thing.
Amongst the people that I have known older people who have been hunters in our jungles. And is there a parallel to what they say to what the Orang Asli practice or feel in their environment? Like for instance, they believe in the spirits of the jungle and things like that. They are real forces.
Yeah. The
I haven't been told by a very enlightened new officer about encountering forces in the jungle that are supernatural.
They believe in it. They believe the forest is animated. It has all these spirits. When they do their dances, they call Siwa. We a lot of it done today for performance, but traditionally it's a communion where the spirits come to assist in a particular ritual, like say a healing ritual, where the shaman will bring the spirits together to go and do some, spiritual stuff. But they believe in it. They believe in the communion of this and the animation of this forest. Have I seen any of this? I don't want to look for any of this. So I don't know.
This part of anthropology.
I don't do religion. I don't do religion anthropology. This is where the Malay, the part of me that is Malay comes out very strongly. Takut, scared when we start talking about shamanism. Yeah, but they believe. I mean, they truly believe. Like the one in the flower. When I asked an Orang Asli guy in Jelly, Jahat, why do you put the flower? He says, well, I was walking in the forest and I saw a spirit in the flower. And I went home, I slept, and I dreamt, and this thing came to me in my dream. So the next day he went and I think he took the flower or he went to the site. They believe it comes, it talks to them, it communicates, it teaches them healing songs, it teaches them something that can help. But they believe the forest is animated. So if somebody is sick, they won't say, oh, I got malaria. If they get malaria, they'll say, I got malaria. But there are certain diseases they believe are spiritual. They believe they fell into a trap set by a spirit being. And so the shaman's job is very important, but he has to find the spirit in order to bring it back. But it's a fascinating landscape.
Sorry, it's really very interesting, and thank you for helping them to set boundaries as well. I think it's not really.
But as Zach said, I don't set boundaries because then I will be intervening.
But you're helping them to set their boundaries. I think that's really important.
To learn how to use GPS.
Hi, sorry.
But if I can just add one last bit, so just the way here I was telling Bert earlier on the radio, there was WWF talking about conservation of tigers, and then how they're teaching Orang Asli to value conservation of these animals. When you talk to the Jai people, they tell you, before you guys came, the forest was alive, full of animals. Then you guys came, you pull an army base there, you this and you build roads to log, everybody follows the loggers. They come and they fish, they use bombs to fish, they use electric currents to fish, they bring high power rifles, they do all this, If you want to save the animal, go out. Live. So the idea of conservation is we don't have to teach them conservation. It's part of their culture.
It's part of their life.
It's part of their life, it's part of their cultural heritage. And they observe and they're particularly sensitive to the destruction as a result of external encroachments. They see encroaches from Thailand, from Cambodia and all these places coming with high powered rifles to hunt in their landscape.
And they're fully helpless. How are they protected? I mean, as a community. I mean, besides their association and government. I mean, is it something effective?
Difficult to answer. I mean, the landscape, as long as it's not so disturbed, is okay. But when people start coming in and
from what you can see in Sarawak, illegal logging.
Yeah, then they that's why the NGO networks now are getting stronger. It's important that they have.
You just follow them and you follow them and loggers. Very simple. They create the park, you just follow. And the destruction.
It's stopped.
So the best way is to already get out.
So one of the focus groups we were doing, that's what they said. Or the focus group, they said, everyone get out. They have a point now.
So how can we, as ordinary citizens, play a part in trying to...
For me, it's solidarity. It's not an Orang Asli issue. Any minority groups or any sort of minority groups that are disempowered, marginalized, should link across. So it doesn't have to be Orang Asli struggling for Orang Asli. It could be, as you mentioned, the populate settlement as a minority group linking up with these other groups. So these guys have linked up with environmental
power
groups.
Each other.
Yeah. And because they are organized now with NGOs and all, it might be good to see how they do their mapping and learn and then share something that you can bring to the table. So a lot of common issues actually overlap.
Maybe for us it's more the sea lah. Those days our fishermen could predict the weather 90% accuracy. What wind, what direction, rain, they can tell. Just looking at the horizon. As early as even 12 hours before.
The Orang Laut,
they can just see and tell you.
the Orang Laut are fighting for their land in southern Johor against encroachment into, I can't remember which part, but they are now in court.
South Johor.
South
Yes.
Johor.
They
South
will do that kind of something park something.
Yeah, so I mean, as they're also coastal, they are also fishermen communities that probably have very similar experience with the Portuguese settlement and the development that's encroaching.
You will do a new corridor.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that can be learned across, but if we can see them as another group,
Yes.
that we can relate.
All ethnic actually is endangered. It's very endangered now. We also we are endangered.
City habis lah. City habis already lah. Habis.
I think basically it's policy lah. Policy.
Your mama also gone already.
It's basically policy.
French just want to start. The French.
So I went to a mission school 6 years, but after in the 80s now. But I still had that tradition. A lot of them were French, right? The
Irish, I think.
ED,
Yeah.
French Missionary of Paris, which is exactly Father Schebesta.
Okay, I always thought it was a Jesuit.
The Divine Society of Mercy is the German equivalent of the French ED.
The German equivalent.
Why you went to see the Orang Asli? Because he wanted to convert them.
Yeah.
He didn't do it free of charge.
No. That was
after.
Hidden motive.
But he was a bit more of an anthropologist than this one.
But I think
He stole bones.
Yeah, but eventually I think what he did is of very great help.
Yeah, it is.
If they did not do that, our knowledge of these people and their landscape,
I mean, we wouldn't have this particular set of records. What I would really love to find out if there really is this head waxers in Australia, that would be fascinating. If we could make duplicates and bring them back, sort of create a interactive center in Greek or in Belum, where the community can control and manage it to talk about their heritage.
but it's so sad everything is becoming just.
to trace the true.
I haven't done it yet. I should start. I haven't started yet.
Should be able to know if they exist or not.
See, I think
They have been destroyed during the war.
That's right.
Everything
But
is
the
becoming
photos in the Austrian archive still exist. They've got its original.
Yes.
Its
Buku
original
sama
size.
taruh dalam itu.
Yeah. We will become like this panel here, exhibit.
Now you can stand there already. Now you can stand there. Ceti stand there.
It's a living,
Oh nonsense lah.
a living heritage.